Okay, welcome everyone. It's great to have everybody here on this fine Monday evening as we have a busy schedule tonight as we will be learning the daf and then a chok. So it's a big schedule here this evening. Beautiful chok on Tetzava Day 2. What an interesting chok there is this evening. I mean, it's like, to me, the Arizal, like what he gave us in one sitting is absolutely unbelievable. We are holding at the two dots a little ahead as we are holding 7 lines from the top of Daf Tzadik Keyam Bay, sponsored by A.B. Spry for the safety of our soldiers, and Klal Yisrael by Shimon Klein, Le'ili Nishmas Asher Anshel Ben Yehuda and Gittel Bar Shimon Pinchas, by Irving Fishbaum, L'Refuah Shalema for Issa ben Rezel and Eliezer ben Rezel, for Meir ben Chaya Sarah. We are dedicating tonight's shir to our Chaver Hadaf, Yaakov Ovadia ben Freda Rivka. You should have a complete recovery and a refuah shalema from Hashem b'seich Sharchei Yisrael. We welcome the Eisdorfer family. Sandy Grunfeld is in the house. Richard Rosenzweig, where is he? Irving, did you speak to him?
I don't have his number. I thought I did.
All right, I'm going to try to find out where he is. Okay. We welcome Mel Zachter, who's joining us, Berish Gesserman, Marshall Castle, Eddie Chazan, Mark Frankel. Good to have you on a regular weeknight, Mark. Nachum Yamansky, Irving Fishbaum, A.B. Spry, Stephen Holtzman, Shalom Fogel, Eli Yudel, Nachman Chapler, Aaron Swade, Shimon Klein, Yitz Fuchs, Benzion Cohn, Yitzi Muller, Moshe Lehman, Elia Shutman, Naftali Javelin, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg. Here in Shul, David Helfgott on Kol Lashon. Here in Shul we have Saba, Rich Leonard, Kramer, Michal Avram, Ron Blumenfeld. As we, the Mishnah says, Gazal para muberes v'yolda. If Marshall steals from, look at this, what did I do? If Marshall steals a cow from AB, he steals a cow from AB, and the cow is pregnant and it gives birth by Marshall. So now, let's see, there's a very subtle differences in Marshall's responsibility. You know, the fact that Marshall is engaged in skullduggery, is not a surprise to anybody. But let's see what his responsibility to AB is. So says the Gemara, Ton Rabbanan, Hagoizel Rachel v'Gaziza. Marshall steals a sheep and he shears it. So he steals a sheep with wool on and he cuts off the wool. Para v'yolda. He steals a cow and it gives birth. So Ramea says, give everything back. Give back the sheep, give back the wool, give back the animal, give back the baby. In other words,
to raise the kid?
No, but in other words, what happens over here is that Marshall, you know, he's Marshall, and he considers all the angles. And Marshall says, I'll give you back an animal and the value of the wool on the animal's back. I'll give you back an animal and the value of it being pregnant. But the fact that it was cut off and it was delivered, that's me. But Ramea says, what's going on over here?
to get for having me steal pregnant cows.
I don't know why. I pressed the 5 button already once, but okay. For our Kol Lashon listeners, we're holding on Tzadik K, 8 lines from the top. So, Tan Rabban, Agazel Rachel the Gaza, if Marshall steals a sheep and shears off the wool, Para V'yalda, a cow, and it gives birth by Marshall, Mishalem Oisa Ve'eskizaisa, he gives back to Abi the animal and the wool, that's what they say, and the animal and its offspring. Divra Rameir. That's the opinion of Rameir. Rabbi Yehuda says no. Rabbi Yehuda says Gezela Chayzeres Be'enei. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that Marshall just gives back the barren sheep and the barren cow. That wouldn't be fair. But Rashi says, Gezela Chayzeres Be'enei, says Rashi, K'moishi Akshav Reikanis, the way it is now, empty of wool and empty of a child. Yarzi Rena, he returns it, and says Rashi, V'hodar Mishalim Demei Gizus V'uber K'moishi Hi B'shas HaGzela. And he pays for the wool on the back and the animal in the stomach. V'loi shvach hagiza, and not the improvement of the actual shearing. She'eshbiya che'etzlai v'loi shvach havlad. Now why? Because Rabbi Yehuda doesn't penalize Marshall. He doesn't know him that well. The loikanis Rabbi Yehuda. Rather, of course he pays what it was at the time of the theft. Nobody holds that you pay less than it was worth at the time that it's sold. Now comes along Reb Shimon, and Reb Shimon slices and dices yet a little bit more. Reb Shimon Aimer Royan Aisaki Shuma Etzai Bekesef. Reb Shimon says we view the sheep at the time of the theft and the cow at the time of the theft as it was evaluated in dollars. And he pays that. And it sounds like Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda are saying the same thing. And the Gemara is going to have to analyze what the difference is between Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda. But now let's go first and analyze Reb Meir. Wow. Ibaylahu. My time in the Reb Meir. What's the reason of Reb Meir? In other words, Reb Meir says you return, Marshall returns the animal, as we welcome in Mo Kushner for our 26th Zoomer of the evening. Mo, it's wonderful to have you with us. Elliot, it's good to have you with us as well. So, says the Gemara, let's analyze Reb Meir. Reb Meir again says that Marshall has to return the animal, the wool, the animal, and the baby. My time to Reb Meir. Is it mishum de kasava shinoi b'mekaymai aimit? Is it because he holds that even though there is a change, obviously there's a change, it remains in the possession of Abi, and therefore he has to give everything back. Oh, Dilma Baalma Shinoi Kaina. The fact it did undergo a change, and really, once it undergoes a change, Abi would acquire it, and therefore he would keep the improvement. But v'hacha knasahu de kakanas. We level a penalty against Marshall that he should give everything back. L'may nafkamina. What's the difference? The difference is lahecha de kakashamichash, where it deteriorates, where it gets emaciated. If he holds that shinui is not kinda and it remains in the rishus of AB, so then he could give it back the way it is. If he holds that shinui is kaina, so if it deteriorates, he has to restore it to the way it was at the time of the theft. Tajma, Gazel behema v'hiskina, if Marshall steals an animal and it gets old by him, avodim v'hiskinu, servants, and they get old by him, mishalim kishas hagzela, he has to restore it to the value at the time of the theft. Remeir Aimer, Bavodim, Remeir says, that's true in the case of the animal, that you have to restore it to the time of the theft. A slave, however, an eved is like karka, is like real estate, and karka is not nigzelis. You cannot steal karka, you cannot steal real estate, and therefore it's always in the property of AB, so you just return it the way it is. But by an animal, he says that he has to restore it to the value it was at the time of the theft. He restores to the way it was at the time of the theft. Now, if we hold that he would be kained b'shinoi, then why does he have to? If we hold that shinoi b'mekayma imedes, that he doesn't acquire b'shinoi, so then he should be able to give him the animal the way it is. He should give it to him the way it is. Elalav shmami no kasavra meir normally shinoi kaina, that when it undergoes a change, it becomes marshals. And therefore, if it gets old, he has to return it to the way it was at the time of the theft. And over here, the reason why he has to return the wool and the animal is because of knas. V'hacha knasu de kakanes. So the Gemara says, no, maybe not. It's not. That's not mukhrach. It's not inevitable, or it's not definitive that that's the opinion of Rameir. Imre Rameir, it could be Rameir holds that shinoi b'mekayim ayimid. You don't acquire things with a shinoi. And Rameir is just playing devil's advocate. Imre Rameir l'divreim d'Rabbanan Kama. L'didi, according to me, shinoi ayina kaina. A change doesn't acquire it for Marshall, and therefore he would buy the animal, even if it gets old, he would be able to tell him, here's your animal. Vafilu behemanami, he could tell him, here's your animal. Eluliditchu, but according to you, Rabbanan, damrisu shinoi kaina, that you say a change acquires it, but at least admit to me that by karka it's not that way, because karka ain't an exelis. Idly mias ba'avda de kamakarka idam. V'karka ain't an exelis. The Rabbanan counter that even by an eved you could say, here's your eved, because they hold that avda is k'metaltalei dami. Rabbanan loy avda k'metaltalei dami. An eved is like a movable. Tajma. So now the Gemara, as we welcome in Jay Siegel for our 27th Zoomer of the evening.
Cain Yerbu.
Amen. Tajma. Litzvaya loy edon. If Abi tells Marshall, here's my wool, dye it red. Now here Marshall is not a thief, he's just a klutz.
I'm getting better with age.
I'm in middle of a share now. Tajma. Tajma. Litzvaya loy edain. Abi says to Marshall, dye it red. Vitzavu shachar, and he dyes it black. Shachar, he tells him to dye it black. Vitzavayeda, and he dyes it red. Rameir aimer noisin loy demeit simroi. Rameir says, well, since Marshall messed it up, he gives him back the value of the raw wool. The value of the raw wool he gives back. The made simra in only the value of the raw wool. The made simra v'shivcha lay, but he doesn't give him back the wool with its improvement. He doesn't have to give him back the dyed wool. The isal kedaitach savar Rameir shinui eina kaina. But if Rameir holds that shinui doesn't acquire, so then he should have to give him back the wool with the improvement to make simroi v'shivchoi ba'ilameisavlei. Elulav shmami no kasavar Rameir shinui kaina. Now, if shinui is kaina, so then over here when he stole the animal and he shared the wool, he should have acquired it with the shinui, and then he shouldn't have to give back the wool. He shouldn't have to give back the baby. He should only give back the value of the animal with the wool upon it. However, we just level a penalty against Marshall for stealing, that he has to return the wool as well and the baby as well. Shmaminot, that's a good proof. Now the Gemara ups the ante. It gives us a different version that says we never had a question about the opinion of Rameir. It was not a question because mida'apach Rav v'tani, since Rav switched around the opinions and taught Gozel Pora v'Iskina, if you steal a cow and it becomes old, Avodim v'Iskinu, or servants and they become old, Mishalem Kishas HaGzela, Marshall has to pay the way it was worth at the time of the theft, and not, he can't give back a old eved and an old animal, and he can't say that means clearly that Rameir holds that shinui is not kaina, the change is not kaina, and therefore, excuse me, by slaves, you could say, here's your slave, because karka and exelis. But Rameir holds that Marshall acquires it when it gets old. He acquires it when the ever gets old, when the animal gets old, and therefore he has to restore it to the way it was at the time when he stole it. Vaday Rameir shinui kaina. When it undergoes a change, he acquires it. And therefore, over here, he should acquire the wool. And he should acquire the animal. Why does he have to return back the actual wool and the actual animal? That's clear. The question is, do we cancel Marshall even if it wasn't a premeditated, willful act? Or do we only cancel him in a case of thievery? Or do we cancel him even where he makes a mistake and dyes it the wrong color? As we welcome in Shelley Zeitlin now for our 28th Zoomer of the evening. Welcome, Shelley. As I say, better late than never. I'm a very big believer of that. But I know Shelley knows that there's a chok tonight. He doesn't want to miss the chok. He says, I'll get what I could get with the daf, but I'm not going to miss a chok on Tetzava Day 2. Smart guy. Choks don't grow on trees, I'll tell you that much. That's what they told me when they were trying to push me to do the chok. They told me, there's a lot of daf yomi magidei shiurim, but how many chok magidei shiurim in English there are? I mean, even in Bava Kama, you just can't go out in the street and find a chok. But I don't know how many there are in Lakewood either, Mark. Forget about in Bava Kama.
I found one in my garage.
Yeah. So anyway, what? What did you say?
No.
Yeah. So it says the Gemara, Ki ko ibaylan hachi ibaylan. our question is, Kika konis b'mezid, do we throw the book at Shelley according to Rameir only when it's a mezid? Aval b'shaygeg, but if Marshall did b'shaygeg like konis, I do ma'afilu b'shaygeg nami konis, or we level against him even if it's done unwittingly. Toz Tajma. Now this is high level torts. This is not simple torts. The next teaching, as you know, normally if Rich owes me money and he can't pay me, but he sold something to Michal Avram, and the date of the sale is after the date on my note, then if Rich doesn't have any money, I could go and take away the field that he sold to Michal Avram. That's called nechasim mishubadim. I could take from mortgage property, right? Because if he fails on the loan and my note has a earlier date than Michal Avram's purchase, so of course that's why Michal Avram does a title search, and he decided to take a risk. He got a good price. He decided to take. Now, if Michal Avram was smart, then he buys the field with an achrayus clause, with a security clause, that if I take it away from him, he could go back to Rich and claim his money. If he doesn't have an achrayus clause, so then he was a speculator. You know, he bought it and he made a mistake. He lost out. I took it away from him, and he'll learn next time, you know, if there is a next time. But we know one thing, he's not buying it from Rich again. Now, but anyway, Chamisha, 5 people, Goyven Minach Mechurarin, can only collect from free property and not from Mishachrarin, not from mortgage properties. Who are these 5 people? The Elohein, Peiros u'Shvach Peiros. Now, what this means is that I was dumb enough to buy property from Marshall. Right? So I bought property from Marshall. I confess, it was in my early years, before I knew who he was. And I bought property from Marshall.
Yeah.
It turns out, of course, that he stole it from Aby. Now, in the meantime, the property grew payers by me, grew fruit, and I put in an electrified fence. Everything goes back to Aby. Okay, everything that I did, the field, plus the fruit, plus the electrified the sprinkler system that I put in, that all goes back to Aby. I go to Marshall and say, okay, I want my money back. You know, it was stolen property. I paid you. I want my money back. What do you think? Marshall doesn't have the money. But Marshall had sold land to Rich after he sold the land to me. So therefore, I go to Rich and I could take away the value of the land. But I can't take from Rich for the payers that were taken away from me and for the improvement. That I can't take from Rich. So therefore, those are the first 2 things that can't be taken from mortgage properties. Peiros u'Shvach Peiros. The fruit that grew that Aby took back, and the improvement that I made in the field. Another thing, if a person made a commitment to support a stepson or a stepdaughter for 5 years, and now there's no money. You can't go to the mortgage properties for the payment of the stepson and the stepdaughter. And the next two are pretty obvious. V'get chayiv she'ein bo yachrayis, a promissory note that has no security clause. That means that uksuvas isha she'ein bo achrayis, a promissory note where there's no promise that if the lender fails, you could collect it from mortgage properties, or ksuvas isha that doesn't have achrayis, it can't be collected from mortgage properties. Now, first we're going to prove that this is going according to Reb Meir. There is an opinion that even if it doesn't have an achrayis, it's automatic, and it's just considered a toy cipher. It just was left out by the scribe. So man shamaslei, who holds man shamaslei the amar achrayis lav toy cipher, who is of the opinion that the security clause is not just an automatic mistake, but if it has missing the security clause, then you can collect from mortgage property. Reb Meir. And Vikitani, what does it say over here about my rights? What does it say over here about my rights? That when Marshall sold me stolen property and AB takes back the stolen property and Marshall doesn't have any money to give me back compensation, so I go to Marshall's subsequent buyers after me, and we say that I can't collect for the improvement that I made, and also for the fruit in the field. Viktani Paris is Shvach Paris. Now Shvach Paris Hechidami. What's the case? Marshall stole the field from Abi. And he sold it to me. And I made an improvement. And it is taken away from me by Abi. When I collect, so I could collect for the base price of the field. I could collect for the base price of the field from Rich, who bought it after me from Marshall. But I could only collect only from Marshall's own property, but not from Rich. The Asa Bal Ara, now it's talking about that obviously A becomes Vishakal Are Ushvache, that he takes the land and the improvement that I put in it. Now, isn't it talking about that my love, Ba'ama Oretz, the lo yoda de karka nigzeles oy eino nigzeles? Isn't it talking about where an Amma Oretz who doesn't know whether karka can be stolen or not stolen? And we know that the halacha is that karka can never be considered stolen. And that's because real estate is always in one place. So it can't be secreted away. It can't be smuggled away. It's always in the same place. So that's the meaning of the phrase that real estate can never be stolen. Now remember, if real estate can never be stolen, it never really leaves the possession of Abi. It's always Abi's property. So Gemara says, my love, Ba'am Oretz, are we dealing with the buyer, that's me, the one who bought it from Marshall? My love, Ba'am Oretz, the lo yada de karka nigzeles or aina nigzeles. That I don't know whether real estate can be stolen or not stolen. I don't know that. And even so, Va'afilu hachi, even so, we say that AB can seize the land and the improvements that I made in the land. Va'afilu hachi ka'asi bal karka v'shaka la'ara v'shivcha. He could seize the land and the improvements that I put in the land. And that means, ushmami na b'shoigeg, that even if it was done inadvertently, nami kanis, Rameya holds that there's still a knas, and we take away the improvements. Now, but let's see over here. Is this assuming that when I bought it from, if this assuming that when I bought it from AB, when I bought it from Marshall, I knew that it was stolen merchandise? Hold on a second. You see, there's a problem over here. AB is very quiet. The problem is, normally we hold that hayored l'seich stei chaveroi, that if I go into your field and I make an improvement in your field, you have to pay me for those improvements. Here the Gemara says that AB takes the field with the irrigation system that I put in, and he doesn't compensate me. Now he gets back a field with an irrigation system. It used to be that all of the stuff used to dry out, and I put in an irrigation system. Why shouldn't he have to reimburse me for that irrigation system? It seems to be that I am being penalized over here. Now, even though I did it unwittingly. Now, but let's see. Again, why should I be penalized? Did I know that this was stolen merchandise? 1 second. Yes, so the Rashba learns that that's what it's talking about. The Rashba learns that it's talking about where I knew. What do you think I'm dealing with, Marshall? I knew it was stolen merchandise. If I knew it was stolen merchandise, so then, if I knew it was stolen merchandise, so therefore, when I made improvements, but the Gemara wants to suggest that maybe I was in Amoritz, and I thought that I'm acquiring the land with a shinui, and therefore the improvements that I did was okay. And yet we penalize and we don't have AB reimburse me for those improvements. That's a raya that we penalize even in a case where I did something unwittingly. AB takes it with the irrigation system and doesn't reimburse me, and he does it even where it's unwitting. Says, no, I'm a Talmid Chacham, and I know that karka is not nigzelis, and therefore I shouldn't have made the improvements, and that's why AB doesn't have to reimburse me. So we still don't have a proof whether we penalize even if it's done b'shoigeg. But now the Gemara brings a clear proof. Tajma, litzvaya loy adaim, I tell AB to dye it red, I tell Marshall to dye it red. I'm not going to make AB a klutz. We already have a klutz. The Gemara says, I tell Mark, it doesn't seem to be you're helping Marshall much. I'll tell you that much.
I'm here for support, Rabbi.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's good. He needs somebody in his corner.
I need all I can.
Just be careful, Mark. It's a haunted corner. Now, so Tajma, litzvaya loy adaim. I tell Marshall dye it red, utzvay shachar, and he dyes it black. Shachar, tell him black, utzva adaim, and he dyes it red. You know, there are people that way. Now, obviously, it's a shogeg. He's not doing it on purpose. That, like I said, just a klutz, right? So Rameir Aimer Noisen like Dmeit Simrei. He only has to restore me back the price of the wool. Dmeit Simrei and Dmeit Simrei is Shifchai Loi. He doesn't have to give me the improved wool. So that means that we hold that you don't consent where there's no intention. If we say that we penalize even if it's done unwittingly, you should give the wool and its improvement. Rameir penalizes if it's willful, so we just finished analyzing Rameir. Now we're going to go to analyze Rabbi Yehuda, and in the process, we're also going to try to unravel what the difference is between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon. Remember, Rabbi Yehuda was of the opinion that when Marshall steals the animal with wool and Marshall shears it, or he steals the pregnant cow and it gives birth by Marshall, according to Rabbi Yehuda, only has to give back the value of a pregnant animal, or the value of an animal with wool on it. The shvach, the improvement of the fact that the wool is taken off the animal, and the improvement of an actual born baby, that Marshall gets to keep. Reb Shimon then says it in other words. Reb Shimon says that Marshall has to evaluate bekesef, how much the animals was worth when he stole it, and he has to give back that amount, which sounds to be the same kind of opinion as Rabbi Yehuda. We're going to have to see what the difference is. So let's see. Rabbi Yehuda says that he has to give back the actual animal and restore the value of the wool when it was attached to the animal, or the value of the fetus when it was in the animal. Reb Shimon says, we view it, what it was worth at the time that he stole it. My benayu, they're saying the same thing. They have to return back the value it was when he stole it. Amr Rav Zvid, b'shvach she'al gabe gezela kamiflagi. They're arguing about the improvement that is still attached to the animal. what happens with the improvement that's still attached to the animal? An interesting case over here. What happened is Marshall stole an animal, and then when it was by Marshall, it grew wool. He stole an animal, and when it was by Marshall, it became pregnant. What's the din? What does he have to give back? So according to Reb Shimon, it says you have to make a shuma of the way it was when he stole it. So then you don't have to give back the shvach. You don't have to give back the wool. You don't have to give back the animal. Rabbi Yehuda says you have to return it ben. You have to return it the way it is. So you got to give it back with wool on it, and you got to give it back pregnant. Right, so let's see that inside. Rabbi Yehuda Savar, the nigzal have it. Give back the animal with its now wool. Give back the animal that's pregnant. Reb Shimon Savar the Gazlan have it. No, Marshall could keep it. Could you believe that? Can you believe that? And Shalom says, I can't believe what's going on over there.
Yeah, why not?
Rav Papa says no. Listen to Rav Papa. Rav Papa Nekumi Alma Shvach Shal Gabe Gezela de Gazanav. Everybody holds that Marshall gets the wool that grows when it's by him, and Marshall gets the baby in the animal's stomach. Because the bottom line is that you only have to pay Kishas Gezela. But here's the question. Here's the question. How much is Marshall's? Is pshat that Marshall walks away with the wool? Listen, I stole an animal that didn't have wool. I'm giving you back an animal that doesn't have wool. I stole back an animal that was without fetus. I'm giving you back an animal that's without fetus. Reb Yehuda holds that you got to give back the wool. You got to give back the baby to you got to give it back to Abi. But Abi has to pay Marshall. It's unbelievable. Abi has to pay Marshall for taking care of it while it's by him. So he has to pay him a shepherding fee. And that goes according to the standard, whether the standard is 25%, 33%, or 50%. They're only arguing whether he has to pay him a service fee of 50%, 33 and a third, or 25%. Rabbi Yehuda says, look, Marshall only has to restore it to Abi the way it was when he stole it. And therefore the wool that grows and the baby, he gets to keep. Kulei de Gazlanavi. Reb Shimon Sava, no. He has to return it to Abi, but L'machzel l'shlish l'reviyahu d'shakal Gazlan. Marshall gets a service fee for taking care of it. Tanan, this is really, I'm telling you, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. It's almost like squatters' rights. And by the way, there's things like this. Marshall goes into somebody's house, squats there, and then he's charging because he watched the property. That's what's going on over here. It's insane. The only person that's not upset is Marshall. It's insane. But there is such rules like that. Squatter goes into your house, stays in your house for 6 months, and then claims, I watched your house for damage. It's crazy.
Marshall's law.
Yeah, so let's see. Tanan. Gazel para v'nis abra etzlei. Marshall stole a cow, and it became pregnant by him. V'yolda, and gave birth. Rachel, he stole a sheep, V'nitana etzla, it's got full of wool. V'gazaza. Mishalim kishas hagzela. The halacha is that he has to only restore it to the way it was when he stole it. Yolda in, but that's only if it gave birth. Lo yolda, but if it didn't give birth, then hadra be'ene. You have to return it mamish the way it is. So the Gemara says, Bishloi mularav zvid, da'am ashvach shal gabe gezela denigzalave. It's good according to Reb Zvid, that holds that according to Reb Yehuda, the stuff that grew on the back belongs to AB. Then Hamani Reb Yehudi. Then this is going according to Reb Yehuda. El Rapapa, that everybody says that that which grows with it goes to the Gazlan. El Rapapa Dama the Gazlan Ave. Hamani loy Reb Yehuda v'loy Reb Shimon. Says no. Amalach Rapapa who adin afilu lo yolda nami. Even if it doesn't give birth, kishas agzeilu de mishalim. Even if it doesn't give birth, and the wool is still on its back, or the baby is still in its stomach, you only have to give it back the way it was at the time when you stole it. You don't have to give the value of the wool. V'adiktani yolda, but that which it says only if it gave birth, I need a nasiv reisha yolda, since it says in the reisha where it gave birth, nasiv sefer nami yolda. And indeed, Tanya Kavasi de Rapapa, we have a brisa like Rapapa. Reb Shimon Aimer Isa Kilu Shuma Etzlai Bekesef. Reb Shimon says we evaluate how much it was at the time of the theft, and what that means is that we evaluate how much it was at the time of the theft. Marshal, meaning that although the wool goes back to AB, and the fetus goes back to AB, but AB has to compensate Marshall for a service fee for taking care of it, l'machtza l'shlisha l'revia, giving either 50%, 33 and a third percent, or 25%, according to the local rate. Amar Ravashi, Ki avinon bei Rav Kahana, when we were in the academy of Rav Kahana, iboilon. Here is an interesting shayla. So Marshall wants his service fee. Can he claim he wants the service fee from the animal itself? Can you imagine? I can't imagine we're talking about this. We're talking about the rights of the thief. Can he claim that he wants the service fee from the actual animal? Or could AB give him cash? So he boilon, Rav Shimon de Amar Lamatzel L'Shlisha Ravia, who de Shakel Gazlan, that's what Marshall gets. Ki Misalkinon Le, when AB gets rid of the guy, finally gets his animal back, he finally gets his wool back, and now he has to give him a service fee. Misalkinon Le, can he b'dmei misalkin Le? Could he give him money and say get lost? Or dilma bebisrishko, or perhaps he could demand it from the actual animal. Upashtana mehadam Rav Nachman Shmuel, from a rule that Rav Nachman says in the name of Shmuel. Now this is an application that shows the bekias of the Dayanim, of how they knew. Shloisha shaman lehem ashvach. In three situations, you evaluate the improvement, and you could offset it with cash. Now, we know that a firstborn takes a double portion. And he only takes a double portion what was there in the estate, but not for the improvement that was done after the father died. So here, the father left the vineyard. Till they got around to dividing it, there were improvements made after death. Now, the firstborn doesn't get a double portion in those improvements. So in the double portion that he takes, he has to reimburse them because he's also taking a double portion of the improvements, but he's not entitled to a double portion of those improvements. So he has to reimburse them and give them back the extra double portion that he's taking from the improvements. He doesn't have to give them back from the land itself. He could offset it with cash. And also a creditor to the buyer. Now this means that the creditor, here again, Rich owes me money, and he doesn't have the $1,000 to give me. He sold the land to Michal Avram for $1,000. So I take away that land from him. But Michal Avram made improvements. So I could offset those improvements with cash. And he can't tell me, well, give me a portion of the land to offset the improvements. So Bal Chayv L'Leikeach, and also Bal Chayv L'Yasayim. If I am a creditor and I take away the property from the orphans, and they made improvements, I could offset that with cash. Now, it says only those three cases, but not the case, so there's actually Machlokes Rishonim, what the raya is in our crook over here. Some say that it's only in these three cases that you could offset cash, but the crook, you have to give them from the animal itself. Others say we compare it, that just like these cases we offset the cash, Abi could also offset the crook with cash. Okay, we're going to stop over here. This again was an extremely difficult piece of Gemara, and we thank you for really joining us. We're going to do now, we did the Mishnah Yomis already. It's already on all of the places, and what was this tonight? 95? Yeah. So we're gonna do now a chok. Rich, could you get the green screen?